Hello everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for being here on today's webinar. My name is Marissa Kirk-Epstein and I am with Share Our Strength No Kid Hungry Center for Best Practices. We are here today to discuss our new tool, the Averaged Eligibility Map, which I am very excited to show you all today. Before I get started, I want to discuss a few housekeeping items about today's webinar. First of all of your phones are set into listening mode only. This means that we'll be taking questions, all questions, over the computer instead of by phone. In order to submit questions, you'll need to type your questions into the questions section of the GoToWebinar menu. You can type these questions in at any time during the presentation, but all questions will be addressed at the end. A copy of the recording of this webinar, as well as links to the resources I discuss, which will include links to the map itself as well as the user's guide, will be made available after the session. You will receive an email of these and they will also be available on our website. I also wanted to tell you a little bit about the No Kid Hungry Center for Best Practices for those of you who may be new to who we are and what we do. The Center for Best Practices provides a wide variety of tools and resources that can be used by advocates, sponsors, community leaders, and elected officials to achieve success in fighting childhood hunger. We provide trainings, toolkits, case studies, hunger statistics, issue briefs, reports, and more on how to best utilize federal nutrition programs like school breakfast, CACFP, and summer meals. We are also always happy to work one-on-one with people with any assistance you might need, so please feel free to reach out to us about anything you might need help with. So here's today's agenda. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about the USDA area eligibility averaging policy behind the map and the reason why this map was created in the first place. Next, I'm going to walk through how to use the map to determine if a meal site or a family daycare home is area eligible according to USDA's averaging policy. Then I will show you how to use the information in the map to get a meal site or a family daycare home formally designated area eligible by your state agency. And then finally, I will open it up to questions at the end. Like I said, before I demo the map, I want to give some background on the USDA averaging policy, which prompted the creation of this map for those of you who might not be familiar with it. Given that this is primarily a child and adult care food program or CACFP-oriented audience, I'm going to refer specifically to the impact of this policy on CACFP family daycare homes during the presentation. However, both the policy and this map apply to summer meal sites in addition to family daycare homes. So keep that in mind whenever I refer to family daycare homes for those of you that also do work on summer meals. So as you know, area eligibility is used to determine the Tier 1 status of a CACFP family daycare home. When using census data, this means that a daycare home is located in a census block group or tract where at least 50% of children are eligible for free or reduced price meals. In November 2014, USDA issued its averaging policy, which stated that a daycare home or meal site could also be designated area eligible if it is located in a census block group that has at least 40% of children eligible for free and reduced price meals and meets the 50% free and reduced price eligibility threshold when it is averaged with one or two adjacent or touching block groups. Hopefully that will make more sense to you as we go through, but that's the nuts and bolts of that. Census data on free and reduced price eligibility is provided at both the 18 and under level and the 12 and under level, and either one may be used to determine area eligibility, even according to the averaging policy. So that's going to become relevant later, which is why I wanted to highlight that now. Okay, so this is the main page of the No Kid Hungry Averaged Eligibility Map. I will be walking through the map using a series of screenshots because it seemed too technologically risky to demo it live. I hope that this will give you a similar enough effect of walking through the tool itself, but I want to emphasize that I'm always available to reach out if there are any questions that come up as you're using the map yourself. And I'm going to provide my contact information at the end of this presentation. To access the map, you'll want to use the URL that's included at the bottom of this slide, and links are also included in all of the webinar information that was sent to you. So the main purpose of this map is to quickly show you if a daycare home is located in a block group that meets the 50% free and reduced price area eligibility criterion when averaged with adjacent block groups. This is the details box of the map, and it shows you some key information about the map. The first is the legend, which is in the green box. All block groups are color-coded by eligibility status in the map. The block groups in orange are those that meet the 50% area eligibility threshold on their own, and the block groups in gray reflect locations that are not area eligible. These two categories of block groups are consistent with the area eligibility information that's presented in the USDA Capacity Builder and FRAC's Fair Data Mapper, for those of you who are familiar with those tools. The blue colors mean that the block group only meets the 50% area eligibility threshold when it is averaged with at least 1 and up to 2 adjacent block groups. We call these block groups potentially eligible in the legend of this map only because there is the added step that the state agency needs to verify that they are actually eligible through the use of averaging. But these block groups will only show up as blue on this map if they do in fact meet the 50% threshold as a result of the averaging. So there's no fear about that. I will refer throughout the presentation to the blue block groups as potentially eligible and the orange block groups as eligible. I also want to highlight that the details box includes a link to download the user's guide, which will help you to interpret the map and show you how to use the data provided in the map to submit a request to your state agency to get your site formally designated as area eligible. So essentially, all of the information that I'm covering on today's webinar is also included in the user's guide. To close the details box, you'll want to click on the X that's encircled in red. And then if you ever need to reopen the details box once you close it, you can click this icon in the top left-hand corner to reopen it. And then these two items here, on the left, that's if you ever want to share this map, embed it into any of your own resources or websites. And then if you also want to print the map, you'd click the icon on the right. And then these two buttons here are to just zoom in and out of the map. And then the first step to using this map is to input the address of the family daycare home whose area eligibility status you would like to determine into the search bar at the top of the screen. When you input your address into that bar, you'll see something like this. You'll be shown the location, street level location on the map. So you can see our example of 2600 Fox Street in Hyattsville, Maryland is located in a blue census block group. This means that this block group is considered potentially eligible, and our daycare home is area eligible as a result of averaging. You are likely going to want to zoom out to get a better sense of where you are on this map, which you can do by clicking the zoom out button right there. So when you use that button to zoom out a few times, your map should look like this. So you can see, and that is it in a nutshell of determining if your daycare home is potentially eligible. So you can see that this map is pretty easy and straightforward to use in that respect. So now that we've determined that our example block group is potentially eligible, what we'll need to do, we need to determine how to access the information. We will need to verify with the state agency that it is area eligible. The first thing you'll want to do is to close the address box, which you'll do by clicking that X right there. And then what you'll want to do is you'll want to click anywhere on to the block group that the daycare home is located in to pull up the free and reduced price eligibility information about the children living in this block group. Clicking anywhere on the block group will pull up a box that looks like this. And you'll want to click on the Maximize button in the top right-hand corner of the box so that you can display all of this information without needing to scroll. So when you do that, when you click on that icon, it'll open up your information box to look like this. Now I know there's a bunch of numbers here that look like gibberish, but I'm going to walk you through what we are looking at here to hopefully make it simple and easy for you to follow when you're doing this on your own. The first thing to note is the number at the top of this box. Every block group has a unique identifier, which you'll need to provide to your state agency to show them where your daycare home is located and which block group you're talking about. You may recall that I said either 18 and under data or 12 and under data could be used to determine area eligibility. The map will show you the information for this block group using both types of data. This first box shows you all of the 18 and under data. So what this means is that in this block group, there are 260 children who are ages 18 and under, and of those 260 children, 115 are free and reduced price eligible. And then this last number here shows you the percentage of children that are free and reduced price eligible, which is determined by taking 115 and dividing it by 260. And when you do that, you get 44%. And then you will see this exact same information only using the 12 and under census data instead of the 18 and under census data. And then this last set of numbers, which is the hardest to make sense of, shows you the block group or groups that the data was averaged with to make this particular block group potentially eligible. These first two numbers show you the unique identifying number of the 1 or 2 eligible block groups that were averaged with this one, making it potentially eligible using 18 and under data. In this case, only one block group was required to average with this one to hit the 50% threshold. However, you will see a second number listed here if 2 were required. It is more common for a potentially eligible block group to only be averaged with one other eligible block group, which is why I used an example that only had one number. But just be aware that it is possible that there could be 2 numbers that are listed here. And then these second 2 numbers show you the exact same thing, only using the 12 and under data. So you'll notice that the same identifying number is listed for both the 18 and under data and the 12 and under data. This is because it just so happens that in this case it was the same eligible block group for both data types that made this particular block group potentially eligible. It is possible that you could see different numbers listed here if it required different adjacent block groups with the different data to make it eligible. So I'm now going to show you how to take the information that was in that pop-up box and put it into a format to submit to your state agency. So you'll see the box on the left is the exact same information that we just walked through from the map. And the table on the right, you'll want to make sure to first check with your state agency to see if they have a specific format or table you'll need to submit. If they don't have a specific format, you can use this template table, which is also included in the user's guide. And this was provided to me by USDA to use as a template. So the first thing that you'll want to do is take the block group identifier at the top of the information box from the map and put it into the first column of the table here. Next, you'll want to input the child poverty data into the table. Since this block group was made potentially eligible using either the 18 and under data or the 12 and under data, it's arbitrary which data you use to submit to your state agency. So like I said, it was because of this number here, it was made eligible using either data. So like I said, it's completely arbitrary which one you use. In this particular case, I'm going to use the 18 and under data just because it's listed first. So you'll just want to make sure that you're consistent with whatever you use. You'll want to make sure that you note in your table at the top here which type of census data you've chosen to use, just so that if your state agency needs to verify, they're clear where exactly and what type of information you've chosen to use. To complete the rest of the table, we're going to need to locate the area eligible block group that made our block group potentially eligible. We're currently working on simplifying this process, but in the meantime, the best way to do that is to write down the eligible block group unique identifier, which is located right here in yellow. And then you're going to want to go back to the map. And so now that we're back on the map, this in red is where our potentially eligible block group, where our daycare home is located from the earlier example. You can see here that there are 3 eligible block groups adjacent to ours that could have been used to make it potentially eligible. These are located here, here, and here. Unfortunately, you'll need to click on each one and check the identifiers that are listed at the top of each pop-up to find the matching one. So clicking on each one will show you a pop-up that looks like this. This here is the particular eligible block group that made our block group potentially eligible, as confirmed by this unique identifier here. You'll then need to do the same thing with the information in this pop-up that you did with the potentially eligible one and input this information into the table. So going back to our table, here is that same pop-up from the map, just put next to the table. And using the same exact steps as with the potentially eligible block group, you'll start by putting the unique identifier that you can find here in, and you'll put this into the first column of the table here. You'll then similarly want to input the child poverty data into the table. And since we're using the 18 and under data to complete this table, I'm only inputting the 18 and under data from the eligible block group, taking it from here in the pop-up to here in the table. You'll always want to make sure that you're using the same data type for all of the block groups when you complete this table. That's very, very important. And then the last step to completing the table is to calculate the new percentage for this potentially eligible block group. It's a weighted average, so it's not simply a sum of the percentages from the last column. You don't want to sum the 44% and the 58%. Instead, you're going to need to sum the numerators and the denominators, which are clearly labeled in these columns. So for the numerator, which is the number of children in poverty, you will sum 115 and 110, and that equals 225. And then for the denominator, you're going to, which is total number of children, you're going to want to sum 260 and 190, and that equals 450. And then the next step is to divide 225 by 450, and then that equals 50%. and then which is the new percentage of your potentially eligible block group. You will then submit this completed table to your state agency to show them that your daycare home is in fact area eligible through the use of averaging. So that is oh, and I want to highlight that I walked through the calculations for this table. However, the table that you'll find in the user's guide actually does all of these calculations for you. So I would definitely recommend using that table, and then you don't need to worry about summing and dividing. You'll just need to worry about actually putting in the data from the map. So that ends my demonstration. I know it was a lot of technical information in a short period of time, so I'm going to open it up to questions. Before I do that, I want to make sure that you all know that I'm also very happy to walk through any of this with you individually or answer any questions offline. So please feel free to email me at the email address listed on the slide. And with that, I will open it up to questions. Okay, so the first question is, has USDA vetted the Share Our Strength mapping tool? And the answer to that is yes. We worked very closely with USDA in consultation for the development of this map. And then also they've checked, since it's created, they've checked it and verified that it is consistent with their guidance. And also they plan to promote it themselves in the future. And we're working with them on what that will look like and how that will work. So the next question, is this information for in-home care, or does it include centers as well? So I think the policy specifically applies to family daycare homes and summer meal sites. So the next question is, free and reduced price eligibility is 185% of the federal poverty line. However, you referred to the number of children 18 and under in poverty as the eligibility number. Can you clarify? Is the data in the map based on poverty level of free and reduced price eligibility? That is a good flag. It does reflect the free and reduced price eligibility rate of 185%, which is what the census data reflects. We refer to it as poverty just because it was difficult to put a long explanation into a small box. But to reassure you, it is definitely, it's the free and reduced price eligibility rate. It's not the poverty level. Can you use 18-year-old data for one census block group and 12-year-old data for another census block group? So you can't mix and match the types of data when you're doing these calculations for one particular block group. However, it doesn't matter at all which type of data that you use. So if you have a family daycare home in one location that is made potentially eligible through the use of 18-year-old data and not 12-year-old data, but then you have another one that is made eligible using 12-year-old data, that's completely fine. You just can't mix and match the data for the eligibility of one particular block group. Is this info different from FRAC? So I'm assuming that this is referring to the FRAC Fair Data Mapper, which that tool shows you where the sites are that are at least 40% or higher of children eligible for free and reduced price meals in those block groups. However, it doesn't show you it doesn't show you the actual averaging. So it can't confirm that when that block group is averaged with an adjacent or two adjacent block groups, that it then reaches that 50% threshold. So this tool, we've worked with Esri to actually, on the back end, it codes and does those calculations and then colors it blue. So like I was explaining, only the block groups that will only show up in blue if they do in fact meet that 50% threshold. The next question is, do you only send the table to the state or screenshots of the map with their status? I think that is a question that you'll want to check with your state agency, exactly what they prefer. The main information is the data that is provided in the table, but they may want to also see the map. This tool is still very new. We've only recently rolled it out, so we don't have any kind of precedence in terms of how state agencies prefer to see information from this map to be able to give you much more guidance right now beyond just checking with your state agency. Okay, so the next question is, does this apply for school districts? I'm not sure exactly what that means. There is, in terms of, if you're talking about summer meals, if a school district was a sponsor of summer meals and wanted to use area eligibility data to establish an open site versus using school data, since either type of data can be used to establish area eligibility, then they can definitely use this information to determine an open summer meal site. So hopefully that answers your question. If it doesn't, please feel free to clarify. The next question is, where do we access the user's guide? So like I highlighted, on the main page of the map, in the details box to the right of the screen, right after the legend, it says download the user's guide. It's hyperlinked so that you just click on that and you download the guide. We have also made that available through the description of today's webinar. There's a link to both the map and the user's guide within that description, and we're also going to email you that information at the end of this webinar, and it will also be made available on our website. The next question is, if we have an address that doesn't pinpoint the location of the family daycare home, what will the map show? So I'm not sure if you're asking if you just have like a street name, or if you have the name. It is possible to just type in streets and city locations, and the map will take you somewhere on the map. But if you don't have a specific location, it's not going to be reliable in terms of knowing for certain that it's area eligible. However, this tool can be used just very generally to get a sense of different areas that may or may not be area eligible, so you can use it that way as well. Okay, the next question is, should we be checking this already with our daycare homes? I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that. If you have, I'll take a guess at what I think you're asking. If you are asking about daycare homes that you're not sure of their area eligibility status, you can definitely go ahead and use this now to determine if they may in fact be area eligible. So hopefully that answers your question. If it doesn't, please feel free to clarify. So the next question is, where can we find this map and table calculations? So like I said, the map can be available, the map to the link and the user's guide, which the user's guide will have that table in it that will do the calculations for you. Both of those things will be made available to you following this webinar. Okay, the next question is, what is the specific source of the child poverty data? Is it coming from a specific table available through U.S. Census Bureau's American Fact Finder? Yes, it is census data. We get this data directly from USDA, and so it is the same exact census data that USDA updates every October with their capacity builder. Okay, the next question, will this option be listed as an eligibility verification method when we are completing our applications for CACFP and SFSP? How will we tell USDA/Department of Health or Human Services that this is what we used? I think this is a good question. I mean, we're still sort of wading into uncharted territory in terms of exactly how this is going to be used. We're, like I said, we're in conversations with USDA in terms of exactly how they plan to promote this. I would really like to see this, you know, be combined with the capacity builder in terms of you know, being a similar tool. So I think in the meantime, you'll just want to check with your state agency in terms of how they plan to handle this. Unfortunately, that's the best answer I can give you. Okay, so the next question is, USDA requires the state agency to submit these averaging requests to them as well. So the state agency has to get USDA approval before giving final approval. You are saying that just state agency approval is needed. Are you suggesting that this is going to be a change? No, I apologize that I wasn't clear about the entire process. The first step is to get approval with your state agency, and so that's why I was really emphasizing the state agency approval piece. However, you are correct that USDA gives final approval, and that is unchanging. Okay, the next question is, sometimes when you enter an address on the current map, it tells you that the specific address can't be located, especially in rural areas. Does this do the same? That I don't know. When I have, from my experience with using it, it hasn't done that. However, I can't say for certain that it wouldn't ever do that in any circumstances. If you find that you are experiencing that when you use it, please let me know, because we really view this as something that we want to be useful to you, and we want it to be as effective as possible. And if there is anything like that that you think you know, could be revised or improved, I would definitely like to know about that. That also includes anything in terms of just general usability. If there's any recommendations that you have or things that you'd like to see included in this map that you think would make it, you know, a much better tool for you to use, please let me know. Okay. So the next question is, how long has this tool been used? Is it completely reliable? Which is a great question. It is a new tool. It has been, like I said, it has been verified by USDA, and they've given the sign-off that it is consistent with their policy. And it does, the code that's used to do the calculations is a pretty simple thing. So it's definitely gone through, you know, what the checks and balances that it needs to go through at this point. But like I said, if anything comes up that you're concerned about or you have any flags, please let me know. Oh, okay. So I think this is a clarification on one of the other questions, which is that the address not found in rural areas and new areas are common and often due to not being built or included in the most current census data, which that's a good flag. I'm not sure, I mean, if it's an issue with the census data, then I'd imagine that it'll be an issue with this map. However, please, please follow up with me offline so that we can, if you see that this is specifically an issue for you, I'd like to talk a little bit more with you about this to see if there's anything that we can do. But it sounds like it might still continue to be an issue if it's an issue with the data. And that looks like that is all of our questions. We'll wait a couple more minutes just to see if there are any lingering questions, but those were all great questions, and like I said, I'm really happy to follow up with anyone offline who has any additional questions that you didn't think of today. I also want to emphasize again what I already stated, which is that we definitely want this tool to be as useful to you as possible. So if you have any suggestions for ways that we can make this better, please let me know. And it looks like we don't have any other questions. So with that, thank you all for being here and enjoy the rest of your day.